Speedy recovery. We hope he returns to the Senate very soon. Okay, and thank you for coming out today, for heading, as you're heading out for the weekend. It's a very good day to be here in Washington, and particularly to be here when President Biden lays out his vision for our country. His budget would impact every single family from coast to coast. Every single American family is affected by his legislation in positive ways that people really want and have asked for. So this is just a great budget. It fits the needs of American families to a T and gives them the kind of hope and optimism that America is moving in the right direction and paying attention to their needs. From lowering prescription drug costs, to expanding the child tax credit, to cutting energy bills for families and housing costs, it's clear this budget was shaped with American families as its North Star, and that is a great thing. For lowering prescription drugs, not only just to cap insulin at $35 a month, but this is one of the most amazing parts of the budget, one of the best that Americans are going to sort of jump for joy with, and that is it will cap out-of-pocket costs for high-value generic drugs at $2, making them not just affordable, but accessible. All the people who couldn't afford drugs at all, even though they needed them, will be able to get them. And then one of the things we were proudest of we did during COVID, which took close to half the kids in America out of poverty, the child tax credit. In this budget, it's proposed to be restored. Over 36 million American families benefited from this life-altering program. Again, it had such a profound effect. It's something we Democrats are going to fight for and fight for and fight for until we get it. 19 million more children would get full benefits under the president's plan. Families would receive their benefits every month so they could put food on the table, pay the rent, pay the mortgage. And the budget would expand access to child care, so desperately needed in this country, forming a federal-state partnership to provide universal free preschool for millions of American children. We all have known for a decade or two that preschool is one of the great answers to giving children the education they need so they can have a good adult life. This budget does it. Sticking with families, it would also lower costs for new homeowners, expand access to home ownership throughout the U.S. by reducing the mortgage premiums for new borrowers by about a third, $800 during their first year of home ownership. We all know owning a home makes life so much better for people, and as you make that monthly payment, it goes to your own equity, not to some landlord. This bill does it in an amazing way. It's clear that the president has thought long and hard about what people need and has come up with a great proposal. And of course, Biden commits to protecting and strengthening Social Security while improving the program for the lowest income Americans. He also seeks to improve customer services at the agency by increasing staff and decreasing those telephone wait times. How many of us, every one of us, has heard of the frustration when you call Social Security because you didn't get your check or the wrong check or something, and you have to wait hours and hours and hours before someone answers the phone. Most people give up and hang up, and it's just so dispiriting. So, now we know where the president stands. Americans know Democrats stand with the working families of America. So now the ball goes to Speaker McCarthy and the Republicans' court. Today is March 9th. And there is still one big question all of us are asking. Speaker McCarthy, where is your plan? Where is your plan on deficit reduction, which we have talked about here? Where is your plan, Speaker McCarthy? Where is your plan on making sure we pay our debts? Where is your plan? Whether it's on putting together a budget or avoiding default, we have no plan from Speaker McCarthy. Speaker McCarthy, the president has shown where he stands and where we stand. Where do you stand? Where does your Republican caucus stand? Where is your plan? Americans have no idea where Republicans truly stand on federal spending cuts All we have are various proposals from the Republican Study Committee, Donald Trump's OMB director, which if passed would wreck our country and do huge damage to working families. Now, my colleagues will speak more about the specifics, but this is a roadmap that will lead our country to a better, brighter, more optimistic and happier future, something America really wants. Senator Murray.
Well, thank you. I always say that a budget is a statement of values, and President Biden's budget shows his values are where they always have been, and that is with working people, not billionaires and giant corporations. The president is laying out a very strong roadmap to make America stronger and safer and more competitive for decades to come. He is also showing he understands keeping our country secure means maintaining strong investments, not just in defense, but in the programs that touch families' lives every day. If you really want a stronger economy and a United States that is staying ahead of China, then this is not the time to be slashing investments in the people who keep this country running like our Republican colleagues in the House are proposing to do. President Biden's budget shows he understands that, yes, teachers and firefighters should be able to afford rent or a mortgage in the community where they work. He gets that winning the clean energy race means good-paying jobs, lower utility bills, and that we are not counting on Russia or Saudi Arabia for oil or natural gas. He knows we need sustained investments in public health so we can stop the next pandemic before it becomes another economic and health catastrophe. He knows that an investment in education is an investment in our economy as well. And as I have said so many times, that includes a strong investment in childcare. So I'm thrilled to see President Biden propose a big investment to tackle our nation's child care crisis head on. As I've been saying again and again, you simply can't talk about strengthening our economy without making sure that parents can get the affordable child care they need so they can go to work. This budget shows President Biden is on the same page as working parents and employers who want us to deliver on child care now. Put really plainly, this budget moves our country forward and even does so while lowering the deficit by simply asking billionaires and the wealthiest corporations in America to finally pay their fair share in taxes. Now that we have the president's budget, as chair of the Appropriations Committee, I can say we are going to be moving forward, too, in a bipartisan way. I've spoken with Senator Collins about this, and I believe that we have a real opportunity and a responsibility to work together to make our country safer and more competitive and to do some good for the people we all represent. So we're going to be full steam ahead in our committee with a return to regular order that moves our spending bills in a bipartisan and timely and responsible way that meets the needs of our families and our communities. Not going to be a walk in the park, but I know that colleagues on both sides of the aisle here in the Senate believe it's the right thing to do. So you better believe we're going to be darn busy in our committee with hearings and markups and bills, the works. And this budget offers us a strong starting point and a clear vision for how we build a stronger country. So with that, let me turn it over to Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Senator Murray. And I'm going to be brief since I'm going to be flying all night for town meetings in Central Oregon. With this budget, you cannot get more clear. The Democrats are ready to fight for the proposition that billionaires and multinational corporations have to pay a fair share in taxes. This budget shows that the White House understands that there are two tax codes in America. There's one for nurses and firefighters and teachers. They pay taxes with every paycheck. And another for billionaires who've told their accountants and their lawyers, make sure I don't take an income this year, so they can pay little or nothing for years on end. The American people who work for a living know that they are getting ripped off by those billionaires who figured out how to not just duck paying a fair share, but something like little or nothing for years on end. And since my colleagues touched on some of the particulars, I want to also give an assessment of where we are right now in terms of the budget debate. The very first bill the House Republicans passed was a $114 billion handout to wealthy tax cheats. And speaking of looking out for wealthy tax cheats, you can mark that first bill down that came from the House Republicans as evidence that it's still Donald Trump's party. If you need more evidence, consider the fact that Donald Trump's budget guy is writing their economic plan. Purportedly, he wants to slash and burn even more than the budget proposals did under Donald Trump. And so examples abound with respect to the contrast. And a lot of you as journalists always say, well, what's different in your views with the other side? Well, Medicaid's a pretty good example. Medicaid is a source of health coverage for more Americans than any other program in the country. Republicans are going to call for an America where Medicare as it exists today is no longer. That means there would be no guarantee of nursing home care. And since my days when I was director of the Gray Panthers, I've always been stunned that so many middle-class folks believe that Medicare is going to cover their parents' nursing home bill. That's not the way it works. Even if you've saved for your retirement, so often you go through your retirement savings and you're literally out of money. And you are on Medicaid. You are on Medicaid for your essential nursing home care. And with this Republican, budget, Medicaid no longer exists as we know it. The guarantee of Medicaid and the nursing home that it provides is at risk. So obviously, we're going to have a big debate coming up. And I also, before we want to wrap up, just make a quick comment about some of these Republican ideas that have been circulating in the last couple of days with respect to the debt ceiling. Apparently, they're back to discussing this idea of prioritizing debt payments. Well, I want you to know, as chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, we are not going to sit around and entertain the idea that you could have foreign creditors and Wall Street get priority over all the folks that I'm going to be meeting at town hall meetings in Central Oregon in a few hours. That's not the way it's going to work. We've always said America pays our bills. And when Donald Trump was president, I, as the senior Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee, says we do what's right for America. We pay our bills and then we go on to future debates. But this idea of prioritizing debates, and this is what people ought to be thinking about, provide an opportunity, if that's what they decide, the people who got political muscle are foreign creditors and Wall Street. As long as I'm chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, not going to see anything like that. So I appreciate my colleagues all being here. The distinguished chair of the Budget Committee is also a great member of the Senate Finance Committee, so I'm going to claim him as well as the budget folks.
Thank you, Ron. President Biden's budget presents his honest vision for a stronger and fairer and more stable America. It will lower costs for households, strengthen Medicare and protect Social Security, invest in our nation, and grow our economy, as he likes to say, from the bottom up and the middle out. It will reduce debt and restore some integrity to a tax code torqued to favor the well-off and the well-connected. Few things make a bigger difference to a family than child care. And the president's budget increases child care options for 16 million more kids, lowers costs for parents, funds pre-K access for all 4-year-olds, and restores the full child tax credit, which we saw work so well through COVID. The president's budget lowers prescription drug and healthcare costs and cuts wasteful subsidies to big pharma that cost taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars. Republicans let big campaign donors and the most profitable corporations cheat and dodge, using tricks like offshore loopholes to pay lower tax rates than teachers and firefighters. The president's budget puts a stop to that. And he breaks the grip of big oil, which raked in record-breaking profits and won't help with the environmental and economic toll of climate change. Ending those tens of billions in tax breaks is long, long overdue. The net result of the president's budget proposal, nearly $3 trillion in deficit reduction. Yep. While MAGA Republicans want to increase the deficit by $3 trillion in tax cuts for their mega-rich campaign donors, Democrats want to invest in child care, health care, and housing and reduce the deficit by nearly $3 trillion, all while not raising taxes on anyone making less than $400,000. As of today, our cards are on the table, unlike MAGA Republicans who are hiding their budget plan. It's time for them to level with the American people. Then the American people can choose between a budget for American families and one by and for Republican big donors. Chris Van Hollen.
Thank you, Senator Whitehouse, and looking forward to working with you on the Budget Committee, and we're already off to a good start there. Let me just say something about the debt ceiling. I don't know if any of you caught it, but the other day in the Banking and Housing Subcommittee on Economic Affairs, we had a hearing. And there's one thing both the Democratic witnesses and the Republican witnesses, including Dr. Holtz-Eakin, agreed on, which was it would be absolutely reckless and irresponsible if the United States did not pay its bills on time. I found it interesting that there was consensus among both Republican-called witnesses and Democratic-called witnesses. As my colleagues have said, this is a budget that you can see was put forward by a guy who grew up in a middle-class household in Scranton, Pennsylvania. This is a budget put forward by a guy who wants to grow our economy by expanding the middle class and by providing more families the opportunity to climb the ladder to a middle class. It's the end of the Trump era and other eras of trickle-down economics, because it invests in the success of every single American. It not only protects Medicare and Social Security, as the president said he would do at the State of the Union address, it puts Medicare on a sound footing, solvency for 25 years. And it's fiscally responsible. It will reduce the deficit by $3 trillion over 10 years. So as Senator Whitehouse and others have pointed out, our Republicans keep saying they care about the deficit. They don't care about the deficit. They're not willing to close one single tax break for very big corporations or the super wealthy in order to reduce the deficit. Just ask them. What they do want to do is cut very important investments that are needed for the success of the country, success of our kids' education, investments in places like NIH to make sure we do the research to help develop life-saving drugs and treatments. They want to slash across the board. What the president is saying is we want to ask the folks who have done super well just to pay a little bit more of their fair share. We're going to increase the tax a little bit on stock buybacks. I mean, corporations are raking in record profits, and CEOs are pocketing even more of those profits through stock buybacks. We want those funds to help make every family successful, not just the folks who are already doing very well. And so that's the bottom line of the president's budget. It's a budget that's there for everyday working people, protecting important security that people have put into, invested in, like Social Security and Medicare, but also making the investments that we need to succeed, both individual families, but also as a country when we're competing on the world stage with adversaries like China. So this is a budget, as Senator Whitehouse said, that has been put on the table. We've heard a lot of talk from our Republican colleagues. We haven't seen anything from them. But one thing we do know is they will never ask the most powerful, the most wealthy, to contribute 1 penny toward reducing the deficit. And that's just exhibit A about the fact that they really don't care about the deficit. What they care about is cutting these investments that are so important to middle-class Americans and those striving to become part of the middle class. And I'm looking forward to the debate.
Thank you all.
Yep.
We'll do 2 questions. Stick around, Chris. We'll be on our way. The incredible shrinking press conference as everybody heads for the planes.